On the afternoon of Queen Camilla's 79th birthday, every camera lens, every royal correspondent, and every media headline in the world was trained on the exact wrong person. As the Queen Consort stepped into the soft July sunlight at Highgrove for a quiet family celebration, the press captured the warm smiles, the champagne toasts, and the carefully curated image of a modernized, unified monarchy. But tucked slightly apart near the stone garden steps, standing almost entirely in the shadows, was 11-year-old Princess Charlotte. And held tightly in both of her hands was a small, delicate posy of pale blue flowers tied with a simple, unadorned ribbon. They were forget-me-nots, Princess Diana's favorite flower. When Charlotte stepped forward, she did not walk toward the festive birthday table laden with gifts and cards. She walked silently to the base of the private memorial rose garden her father keeps at Highgrove, a quiet corner of the estate, dedicated to sacred family memories, and laid the pale blue blossoms down. In a single, completely unscripted second, the atmosphere inside that garden shifted from celebratory chatter to absolute breathless silence. An 11-year-old child had just laid down the memory of the grandmother she never met at the feet of the woman who succeeded her. Before we uncover the extraordinary hidden history behind this gesture and how it permanently reshaped the internal dynamics of the House of Windsor, please take a brief moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Your support allows us to continue bringing you deep, authentic, and unvarnished deep dives into the stories the palace rarely discusses out loud. What looked like a simple, polite act of childhood manners was actually something far heavier, far more profound, and vastly more strategic than anyone in that garden had anticipated. For over 9 years, the public has viewed Prince George as the serious future king, and Prince Louis as the joyful comic relief every royal outing demands. Princess Charlotte was systematically categorized by royal commentators as the charming afterthought, the well-behaved young girl who waves impeccably at state occasions, manages her younger brother's energy, and curtsies on cue. That reading was a massive, historic mistake. What transpired at Highgrove proves that the child the world routinely overlooked may actually be the one destined to carry the most emotionally complex inheritance in the entire dynasty. She is the child who held the memory of Princess Diana and the living presence of Queen Camilla in the exact same space without forcing the world to take a side. To understand how a handful of pale blue flowers could send a wave of total silence through a room full of senior royals, you have to look at how a child becomes the emotional center of a dynasty without anyone consciously deciding it. The weight of a forgotten name, Princess Charlotte Elizabeth Diana, was born on May 2nd, 2015. When her birth was officially registered, her third name was not a casual decorative gesture. It was an explicit, unyielding decision made by Prince William, a son who insisted on placing his mother's name directly inside his daughter's identity from her very first breath. For years, that detail sat quietly in official royal registries, noted during her baptism and then largely forgotten by the public, until moments like Highgrove made it feel entirely deliberate again. Charlotte has grown up almost completely in the public eye. Yet by design, she remains the least understood of the three Wales children. Prince George carries the suffocating constitutional weight of direct line succession. Prince Louis carries the untamed energy that captures viral headlines. Charlotte carries something far harder to define: an intuitive, steady emotional awareness that palace officials were content to leave in soft focus. Between 2015 and today, the public script surrounding Charlotte rarely shifted. Media coverage focused relentlessly on her outfits, her poised posture at state funerals, her flawless curtsies, and her sharp, protective glances toward her brothers at public events. She was filed away by commentators as the decorative, perfectly polished royal child. But in an ancient monarchy, the polished ones are rarely studied closely because nothing on their surface appears to demand scrutiny. And that is precisely where the most significant developments take place. The secret legacy at Highgrove itself is crucial to this story. It is King Charles's private sanctuary, the organic estate he built by hand over 4 decades. Tucked within its grounds is a small, private memorial planting that the family has deliberately kept away from public cameras. And forget me nots carry an undeniable, deeply sacred currency within the House of Windsor. They were Princess Diana's favorite flower. They were planted in abundance in the sunken garden at Kensington Palace for her 60th birthday memorial. They appeared quietly in Prince Harry's wedding bouquet. To place forget-me-nots anywhere near an official royal gathering is never a neutral act. Anyone old enough to remember August 1997 understands the signal instantaneously. What the public never saw in the years leading up to Highgrove was the intentional, quiet work Prince William has been doing behind closed doors. According to royal insiders, William has been remarkably deliberate about how his children come to know their deceased grandmother. He does not turn Diana into a distant, untouchable myth, nor does he surround her memory with heavy, suffocating tragedy. Instead, he keeps her ordinary and presents her favorite records, her sharp humor, her favorite flowers, and her stories are woven seamlessly into the daily rhythm of life at home. Royal watchers have long noted that of the 3 children, Charlotte resembles Diana most not merely in her physical features, but in her sharp, intuitive reading of human emotion. William has quietly taught his daughter that grief does not have to be carried as a dark, solemn burden, but can be held warmly and naturally. Highgrove was not a random coincidence. It was the very first public glimpse of a quiet lesson that had been years in the making. The moment beyond the garden wall, the dynamics surrounding Queen Camilla make this gesture even more extraordinary. For nearly 30 years, the global narrative regarding the British monarchy was built around a rigid, binary conflictus story that pitted Diana on one side and Camilla on the other, forcing the public to choose between them. Camilla has spent over 2 decades patiently, quietly working to move the institution past that painful binary. Royal biographers have noted that Camilla made her peace long ago with the reality that she would always be measured against a ghost. That was the delicate ground upon which an 11-year-old girl set down a posy of blue flowers. The first detail that caught the attention of royal analysts was that the moment was completely unscripted and unstaged. The family plans for Camilla's 79th birthday were kept intentionally small, a private family gathering, rather than an official public appearance. There were no official palace photographers positioned to capture a PR set piece. The images that eventually reached the world came from a single long lens camera positioned far beyond the outer garden wall. Charlotte did not place those flowers for a camera she could see. The moment felt sincere, because, as far as the child was concerned, no one outside her immediate family was watching. Sources close to the household reported that Charlotte had explicitly asked to bring the flowers herself. The decision to select forget-me-nots originated from the young princess, not from a palace staffer managing the itinerary. An 11-year-old child connected her middle name, Diana, to her grandmother's favorite bloom, and decided on her own that a family milestone was the proper moment to honor both legacies at once. It was not the cold calculation of a palace strategist. It was the pure, uncorrupted instinct of a child who had been paying far closer attention than the adults realized. A quiet reconciliation, the true brilliance of the moment, lay not merely in the choice of flowers, but in Charlotte's flawless timing. She chose to honor Diana during Camilla's birthday, yet she executed it in a manner that caused 0 friction, 0 defense, and 0 offense. A palace insider described Queen Camilla's reaction as deeply gracious and visibly moved. Camilla instantly recognized what the child was doing and did not flinch from it. She did not view the forget-me-nots as a passive-aggressive threat or an unwanted reminder of past battles. Instead, she met the young girl with total warmth. A child had just accomplished what an entire army of palace publicists, courtiers, and diplomats had failed to do for 30 years. She held Princess Diana and Queen Camilla in the exact same frame without forcing anyone to choose between them. Standing a few feet away, Prince William watched the interaction unfold. He understood immediately what his daughter was doing and chose to let it stand rather than intervene or redirect the moment toward conventional birthday etiquette. He allowed his mother's name, his mother's flower, and his daughter's hands to sit quietly in the garden of the woman who came after. That was the silent drama of Highgrove, not a bitter family confrontation, but an unscripted resolution. The person who finally bridged the impossible divide between Diana and Camilla was the very child the world had spent 11 years treating as decorative. The emotional anchor of the next generation, to fully comprehend the magnitude of this shift, one must look at how royal generations inherit emotional trauma. For decades, the House of Windsor operated on a system of repression-buried resentments, unspoken rivalries, and institutional coldness that eventually leaked into the public domain through bitter biographies and explosive television interviews. Charles, Diana, and Camilla were trapped in a narrative architecture constructed by courtiers who valued appearances over human reality. Prince William and Princess Catherine made a radical, quiet decision when raising their 3 children. They refused to pass that emotional toxicity down. While Prince George is trained in the formal constitutional protocols of statecraft, and Prince Louis is allowed the freedom of childhood exuberance, Charlotte has been quietly cultivated as the family's emotional compass. Inside Kensington Palace and Anmer Hall, she is known as the sibling who notices the unspoken details. When George feels the heavy anxiety of his future role, it is Charlotte who quietly sits beside him. When Louis needs guidance during high-stress national broadcasts, it is Charlotte's subtle gesture that settles him. At Highgrove, that internal family role broke through into the open air. Charlotte did not see a complex constitutional conflict between a deceased icon and a living Queen Consort. She simply saw 2 women who belonged to her family's history, and she refused to let one erase the other. The unbroken chain of royal memory, what that afternoon at Highgrove revealed, is that the emotional core of the British monarchy is quietly shifting to a place no one was watching. Princess Charlotte is still a schoolgirl, years away from formal full-time constitutional duties, and it would be wrong to burden a child with more weight than she should carry. But the instinct she displayed the natural capacity to honor 2 women at once, rather than perpetuate an ancient feud, is the exact emotional maturity the House of Windsor has struggled to model for a generation. When the history of King Charles's reign is written, historians will analyze the political shifts, the state visits, and the institutional reforms. But the true turning point in how the royal family healed its own past may well be traced back to a quiet July afternoon in a garden at Highgrove. A handful of pale blue flowers laid down by an 11-year-old girl proved that the darkest chapters of royal history do not have to dictate its future. The feud that defined a generation did not end with a royal decree or an official statement. It ended quietly, without fanfare, when a child carrying her grandmother's name taught the adults how to remember without holding a grudge. The legacy of Princess Diana does not live on through bitter tabloid debates or cold statues. It lives on in the quiet confidence of a young princess who knows exactly who she is, where she comes from, and how to carry a legacy of love into a new era. A grandmother's name, a grandmother's flower, and a birthday that will now be remembered for a quiet moment of grace that no camera was ever supposed to see.